You're listening to A Sculpted Life podcast, brought to you by Tiya International. Interviews with creatives around the globe.
Steve and the Tiya crew would like to dedicate this episode to Matt Rose. Sadly, just after Steve and I recorded this interview, Matt passed away. Matt was a titan in the industry, an epic sculptor, makeup artist, and friend. A true artist who Steve talks about fondly in this episode as they began their careers in Hollywood, working for the likes of Rick Baker and the Stan Winston School together. We do hope you enjoy the first part of this interview. Steve has worked with Academy Award winners such as Stan Winston, Rick Baker, and the legendary Dick Smith. At the Stan Winston Studios, Steve was the lead concept designer, sculptor, and painter behind one of Hollywood's most memorable creatures, the Predator, and from there they say the rest is history. Steve is one of the most respected makeup, FX, and creature designers in the movie business today, and he keeps surprising the industry with his innovative designs. You can look on Steve's website, which is the alliancestudio.net, to see all of the projects and films that he has worked on in his lifetime thus far. When I asked Steve how he wanted to be introduced in the podcast, he simply said he was an artist. And I think you'll agree with me that he is one of the most accomplished yet humble sculptors out there. So enjoy part one of this two-part episode.
I'm good. How are you?
It's weird. I already feel like I know you because I have been watching so much of your things online in preparation for talking to you.
Oh, thank you.
I've been a little bit of a Steve Wang stalker today.
Oh, well, luckily it's only today, right?
Yeah, exactly. How are you? How's your day gone so far?
So far so good. Just a easy day. Actually, it's my birthday today. I totally forgot.
It's your birthday? Do you want to
Yeah.
reschedule?
No, not at all.
Are you sure?
Yeah. I totally forgot till this morning. I woke up and my wife was like, "Oh, happy birthday." I was like, "What?"
Thank you so much for taking the time, and especially on your birthday, to speak with us. And I want to start off with talking about Instagram. I would love to know more about. I'm always interested in people's Instagram handles and what their bio is. And you have Animal Lover and Awoken Wanderer. Tell me more about that.
Which one, the animal lover or the?
Both of them.
Oh, well, I
Animal
love
Lover's pretty
animals.
self-explanatory, I guess. But
Yeah, I love animals, and my wife and I are vegetarian, borderline
Okay.
vegan,
Yep.
and we just don't believe in the harming of animals for food and for farming and all that kind of stuff. And so
Yeah.
we're working our way to becoming vegan, but we've been vegetarian now for about 3.5 years.
Yeah.
And we just, I don't know, something just woke up inside us, and we just realized, like, this is wrong, all this animal farming stuff. And and I'm not out there preaching to people. I basically just try to, at least when I was on Facebook, I would always post really positive memes and messages of compassion towards people, towards animals. Just try to, because you can't convert people. And convert is probably a very strong word, but
Yeah.
you can't
Encourage.
change people without offending them unless you inspire them. If you inspire them, it's different, and it's amazing to me that even when you just put out a simple message of compassion that has no agenda other than just be kind, that some people will be pissed off about that. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
People have lots of opinions online.
yeah, and so and those people are, everybody's got their story. They have some reason why they're pissed off at something. Who knows? But
Sure.
But like I said, that's just all I try to do whenever I can. I don't do it as much on Instagram because Instagram I use more for art.
Yeah.
But I do comment on a lot of stuff that I see that that I feel are very important, towards animals and stuff. And I do donate a lot of money to charity every year, a lot of different charities.
Yeah.
So yeah,
So that's
just
where
to
that
try to
comes
help out
from.
with that.
And I see you have a dog as well.
Yes, my dog Luna, she's
She's beautiful.
amazing.
Beautiful.
Yeah, she's called a Tamascan. It's
Okay.
actually I never even heard of a Tamascan before.
No, neither have I.
She was something that my wife really wanted, since she was a kid, and I guess she looks like what they call a dire wolf from one of those Game of Thrones or something, or a TV
Yes,
show.
she does. She does,
Yeah. And so she's always wanted one. And we met these people that who we are now good friends with, that were breeders. Uh, and I have a funny feeling about, like getting a dog from a breeder versus a rescue, and so
Yeah.
so after we met these people, just the amount of questioning and um, just as much as they want to find out about us,
Yeah.
so intense that I thought, okay, these people are like they're legit. They really care about the welfare of the animal and all that stuff. And so we finally made it through the finals and went there, met with them, and then we got Luna.
Nice.
And under the agreement that our next dog will be to rescue.
Yeah. It's always good. It's always good to get from a breeder.
Yeah, we have four bunnies in the house as well.
Oh, wow.
All rescues. Yeah.
Oh, fantastic.
I know the lady that runs Bunny World Foundation. She's just an awesome lady.
Oh,
And she came to LA to be an actress, and somehow got involved with bunnies, and then she's been helping bunnies like now for the last 20 some years.
oh, that's great.
And just Heart of Gold, yeah. And then she runs a very effective organization, and every weekend they have bunny adoptions at PetSmart, which is a franchise, pet store all over.
Yeah.
And that's where we got ours, was from her.
Oh,
And
nice.
so we try to do a lot of that kind of stuff, as much as we can, and then when we can't, we donate just to help.
Nice.
So
Great.
and the Walker Wanderer thing,
Yeah.
it's a little complicated. It's something that I just recently discovered, and this might make me sound like a complete whack job, but I don't really care. It's there's a book called The Raw Material. I don't know if you've ever heard of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a series of books, and it was written back in the mid '80s, and it was basically these people that was able to channel a group of sixth density extraterrestrials called the Raw Collective. And, and now we've come to find out recently, within the last few years, that they are what's a race that's called the Blue Avians,
Okay.
where they're interdimensional beings, and they look like bird people, pretty much. And they've been around since, you see all the Egyptian carvings of all the bird gods and whatever. That was them. They've been here for many thousands of years, but they've only been here maybe twice physically. Most of the time, they try to affect us through our consciousness, through thoughts and whatnot. And they try to teach us the one fundamental law of the universe, which is the law of one. And what that means is that we are all connected energetically. That essentially, no matter who you are, what you are, we are all one with the Creator. The Creator being everything, the universe, everything that exists throughout infinity. We are all one.
Yeah.
So they try to come and teach us, but I think what the problem has been is that there's been a lot of followers of this philosophy now, and to me it makes a lot of sense. And I've been kind of reading the books now many times on and off. It's a very difficult read because they get into stuff that are so complicated for our head to wrap around, that it makes me suspect like this is not something somebody made up. It's too complicated. It never contradicts itself ever. Like whoever wrote this is a genius, unless this is in fact a true channeling of this consciousness. So in one of the areas of the book, they talked about what's called the Wanderers, and apparently the Wanderers are ascended souls that have already been through different densities and in a much higher density of existence, that decide to come back to third density, which is us, our third dimensional reality, to help. With because there's so much pain and suffering in our existence, and they come back and decide to help. But the problem is that they have to go through what they call the forgetting, which is why, with every life, our soul reincarnates, but then we forget who we are. Some people don't, but a lot of us do. And so even for them to take that chance to come back to a lower form of existence with the intention to want to help, they sometimes risk getting caught up in the karma of the existence here. So those beings are the wanderers, and they come through all over our universe. It's not just our soul, because all souls are infinite, and it's all over. There are a lot of alien souls on this planet and whatnot. So after reading that, it's something just kind of clicked. Like that's the way I've always been. I've always gone out on a limb to help people, so much so that I get into a lot of trouble a lot, and I get yelled at a lot by people I love because I do too much.
Okay.
But for me, I've always felt that, the suffering is unnecessary if it can be avoided. So I go out on a limb, and I've helped a lot of people over my life, and then it kind of, when I read that whole thing, it kind of just clicked, like, wow, I really connected with that, because the whole purpose of being a wanderer is that you come here basically, to be of service to others, to help, to do whatever, to lessen people's suffering and animal suffering, all that kind of stuff. So
it goes right back to the animal lover as well.
I felt, I kind of resonated with it, it connected with, and I thought, well, maybe that's what it is. So I just wrote that kind of as a little smirk, for anybody who may understand what I'm talking about. And we have egos that get in the way, we have all this luggage that get in the way. So ultimately, I've sort of come kind of in a circle where I realized, okay, I do believe this, because this has been talked about by so many nationalities throughout history, like all the people that have been enlightened understand this concept since like beginning of time, so this can't be just BS. But at the same time, there's still our existence to consider. How we affect other people. They don't know that we're all part of the same, and most people don't. And so there's a way that you have to approach that, where you can't just say, "Oh, it's okay, we're all part of one. So if you want to kill me, go ahead and kill me." I mean, that's unproductive. So I decided to kind of like process it in my brain differently now, and understand where it all comes from, but then also understand how does that actually apply to our existence, because you're talking about the perception of a human being versus, let's say, a perception of an ant. An ant cannot ever try to comprehend what a human being is thinking and their understanding. So there's such a disconnect, other than that we know we exist, and there's a connection somehow. So I'm just trying to apply it in that way.
And does it impact your work?
Yeah, I mean, once you understand a lot of things about life, see, I believe that happiness is a choice. You really can't choose happiness. Like for instance, people say, well, somebody wronged me and they ruined my life. It's like, no, they can't ruin your life unless you let them ruin it. Bad things can happen to you. You don't have a choice in that matter sometimes. But how you react to it, you have 100% choice.
Yeah.
And that's the part that people need to really understand. When some events are traumatic, and we're raised to respond to trauma in very predictable ways because of our nature, and because of also what we're taught. Like, oh, if you drop a glass, you need to go, oh my God, and whatever, But it's like an object, you dropped it, pick it up, throw it away, just get another one. I taught my kids from very young not to react to stuff like that. Whenever they spilled milk, they never go, they spilled it. I go, oh yeah, just clean that up.
Time to clean up.
We try not to make a big deal out of stupid things that that it doesn't make any sense. So
well, in my other life, I do mindfulness coaching, so I completely get where you're coming from, because that moment when people realize that they are actually responsible for what's going on in their life, it's like a light goes on inside them, and suddenly, instead of saying, because ultimately it always goes back to, I'm not good enough, I'm not a good enough artist, I'm not a good enough mother, I'm not a good enough son, it always goes back to the, I'm not good enough. And when they realize that actually that's themselves telling themselves a story about what's happened in the past, and a lot of things they're dealing with now is unhealed trauma from the past that they've just kind of carried with them. And I guess when you say about that awoken, it's like, it's like a light switch goes on, and suddenly you say, oh, I can choose whether I'm happy or not. Life can be a tragedy or it can be a musical, which one am I going to choose?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the vow that my wife and I had in our marriage was that, we promised to each other that we will be responsible for our own happiness, which is one of the things that got us together, is that we both understand that no one can make us happy. Only we can make ourselves happy.
Yeah, you come together as two wholes rather than a half having to complete the other half. It's like we're meeting on a level where we don't need each other. We want each other, but we don't need each other, which makes a huge difference in a marriage. It really does.
Because when she's happy and when I'm happy, then we're happy.
Yeah.
And so she's responsible for, and we've gotten to situations where this has applied many times, and she's like, oh no, you're right. I'm responsible for this part. and then
Nice.
she'll do what she does, and then we're good. It's a good way of understanding, and I
Nice
think,
dynamic. Yeah.
yeah, and a lot of that has helped me with my life in general. It's just, like everybody has insecurities. That's just the one thing that I think people, when they look at anybody with talent or with success or all that kind of stuff, they think, oh, it comes so easy for them. They don't have to do anything. They just was naturally gifted, and they just have. And what they don't understand is that, even the most talented person probably has the worst insecurity problems, because, people say, oh, how do you do it? How are you so good at this? It just seems to flow. And in my mind, I'm thinking, oh my God, I hope they don't realize I'm a fraud, you know,
You've got
because
imposter syndrome? No.
yeah, yeah. Everybody has them. I have it too. A lot of times I look at something, but I understand where it comes from, and I
Yeah.
embrace it.
Yeah.
And I tell people, when they say, "Oh, I'm going to do this project, but I'm scared shitless. I don't know what to do. It's going to be," and I said, "Welcome to my life. That's what I've done my entire career. I've always
Yeah.
just get myself in situations where I'm just like, I don't know how I'm going to do this, and you're scared shitless, but then you do it." And I said, the reason why you do that is because that fear is what's going to drive you to
Mm.
excel.
Mm.
The fear of failure is so real
Yeah.
that you're going to want to go out and go, I don't want to fail. I want to do this, and I want to do it and make it awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
And
that's
a
why.
lot of people are afraid of fear, if that makes sense. But actually, sometimes fear can be one of the greatest things that happens to you, because it does push you outside your comfort zone, and it does allow you to go, oh hey, actually I can do that. Like I was watching when you did the big bronze sculpture for Blizzard. You got outside your comfort zone, and look what was created out of that.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
Yeah, and
Um,
it was hard. It was hard,
mm,
but it's always hard. I mean, the two of my philosophies in life is if it's not hard, it's not worth doing. If you're
mm,
not scared out of your wits, it's not worth doing. You have to be challenged by these things in order to do something, to discover something about yourself.
mm, mm.
And so yeah, whenever we get challenged with something, unless it's something like that, I just know, like, okay, so we need you to take a stab at astrophysics. No, I definitely is not gonna do
Not gonna
that.
go there.
Yeah,
So
but
what?
something within
Yeah.
what I do, sure, I'm always up for a challenge.
So because you've worked on, obviously, if people don't know who you are, you've worked on Hellboy, and I recently read a quote that Guillermo del Toro said, which was, "Steve Wang is an unsung or not often enough sung genius." So because you're very egoless, how do you feel when you hear someone say that about you?
Um, it makes me happy, but it makes me uncomfortable.
Mm.
Um, and very appreciative, obviously.
Mm-hmm,
that was
mm-hmm,
very kind of him to say that. I don't know. I've always had a problem with compliments
mm.
since I was a kid. And if you want to make me really uncomfortable, start giving me compliments. That's just, I don't know. I train myself to deal with it.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
I know never to say, oh no, you're wrong. I'm horrible. I always just say thank you,
Thank you. Yeah, yeah.
because you don't want to insult the people that are genuinely trying to praise you,
Yeah, because then you take that away from them, right? You take away that their right to give you a compliment. So yeah,
Exactly. You never want to do that because it comes from a good place, and it comes from a nice place, and I'm very appreciative of that. So I always just, if I don't know what to say, I'll just say thank you. But it always makes me feel like a fraud, you know,
yeah,
like,
yeah. So
because
it's
I don't judge myself based on other people very often. Like a lot of times you do compare yourself, just natural to other people, other things that like, oh, how's my work compared to that? Like, oh, wow, they're amazing. Maybe I need to work harder this direction. You do that
mm,
just as a way to grow. But for me, a lot of times I look at my own work very differently than how people see my work. And I've also learned to use that to my advantage in the sense of a lot of times when I do something, and my instinct is to find all the flaws in the work and then get depressed about it and go, shit, I should have done more of this, or if there's more time, I could have, But then I also understand that most of these things that I see, nobody else sees because they're
yeah,
not focused on the level that I have to focus on this project. Like I know
mm,
so much about the project and all those things that's supposed to happen that people aren't aware of because they're not involved.
yeah,
So a lot
yeah,
of times, I'll see these things, but then I kind of like test it, like, oh, what do you think, whatever, and then see. I said, just pick it apart. Tell me if you see anything that really sticks out to you as being, and then they don't see it. Even my wife, who's an amazing artist, and she's my art director at my studio. A lot of times, she won't see things that I see. She'll pick out things that that she's very good at that. She'll say, I think you need to look. She's probably my worst critic, but in a good way.
She's
But
allowed.
but right. So if she doesn't see something, and then I'll be like, okay, if she can't see it, then a lot of
It
people
must be
probably
okay.
won't see. Maybe it's not a big deal. Maybe this flaw is something that's personal to me. It's not something that really has any effect on the overall project. Little things like that.
You're right. When you're looking at it, you'll see all the flaws. Whereas if someone else will look, wow, that's amazing. Look how he did that eye, or look at those scales. Aren't they fantastic? But
And I always get like,
yeah, and it's actually nice
got
to
away with it
know.
this time.
Yeah, but it's nice to know that someone, I think that's really good for people to hear, is that someone as accomplished as you, and such a veteran of that world, even you have doubts about your own work, which most people will look at you and think, la, genius, and look at his amazing work, but you're like, I'm still an imposter.
Yeah, it's true. I think I talked about this with some friends before, how I feel about that kind of stuff. And essentially, I tell people, like, what really makes an artist, part of what makes an artist really, really good, I would say, is that their vision, they can see things. The more you can see, and if you have the skills to back it up, you can do amazing work. Like, I've seen people do stuff that I can't even comprehend. I'm just like, wow, they see things on a level that is so
Really?
advanced.
Like
And
who do you look up to?
some of my friends, like Kazu, Kazu Tsuji, he won the Academy Award for the Gary Oldman's makeup
Oh, yeah.
for the Darkest Hour. Yeah,
Wow.
I've known Kazu since he was 18 years old, and I've
Right.
seen him advance from, he's always had this amazing eye for realism and subtlety, and I'm just the opposite of that. It's like I can do realism if I really put my head to it and really focus, but it's not where my heart is at, and so
Yeah.
it's harder for me to do that kind of stuff. Whereas my brain goes right into the more fantastic. I want to see architectural stuff. I want to see lines and flows and forms and in just craziness, textures, colors, and but somebody like Kazu, he's amazing in that, he just has this eye, and his finishing is so perfect and clean. It takes a level of patience. In fact, I think in his documentary that was just made about him recently, I always wonder, like, I've known him forever. I always wonder, like, how do you keep this up? Because people ask me how I keep it up, and I know, like, I'm not that guy that they think I am. I do, like, stop and go, oh my God, I'm just gonna go fuck off for a few hours or
This is
something. You,
rubbish.
you gotta, yeah. Whereas I know he's really intense and he takes it so seriously, and he even said that at one point he realized if he continued on the path that he was gonna die very young. It was gonna kill him because of just his dedication, just the mental power it takes, and the patience, and the hours it takes to do what he does. And he kind of came to that realization. And then there's a bunch of other artists. I mean, there are so many fantastic artists in the world that does these amazing, beautiful, finished things. So so anyway, my point is that I have that vision. I can see. But the sad part for me was about 20 years ago. I guess 20 years ago now. Yeah, I got really depressed because I thought, wow, I can see what perfection is in my mind. My version of what perfection is. But I know I don't have the skills to ever achieve that. It's just something I just won't be able to do. And so
Oh,
if I was able to maybe improve another 5% in my lifetime, and maybe that's about as far as I'm going to get. I'm happy to say I feel like I've exceeded that a little bit.
good, good.
That in the last 20 years I have gotten better at certain things, um, but it's that kind of thing where, do you let this inspire you, or do you let this destroy you, or do you use this in a very a productive way? Because I know I can never do what's in my head. I just can't. It's not. I can't even get close to what's in my head.
Really?
And I don't mean like brilliant genius ideas. I'm just like, just if you just look around and observe everything around you in nature, and just in architecture and all the stuff, especially things that are just created by nature itself. and think about, okay, what does that look like? Now, if you get into a microscopic level and keep going, that perfection never stops. And so just my perception of how things really are versus my ability to duplicate, to create based on that, I just know it's never gonna. I don't have the skills to do it. So I just try to do the best I can.
Looking at your work, I would never have thought that you would ever say that. I thought you were going to come on here and be like, yeah, I'm shit hot. Like, it's funny how we, how we don't put ourselves up on a pedestal, but other people sometimes do. And then, realizing that they're just human too.
Yeah, well, I've come to a realization also many years ago. This is kind of part of my pep talk I give to my crew, because everyone gets depressed, no matter how hard you work and no matter what kind of cool project you're doing, and you know that at the finish line you're going to be so happy, it's going to be great. You still get depressed at some point, And one of my pep talks to my crew is that, like, chin up, you're doing this not just for yourself, and you're doing this not just for your clients. You're here because what we're doing now is going to inspire, and it's going to inspire so many people.
Yeah.
And I said, and that's our job. My job, I know what my job is here. My job is here to inspire other artists in this world, because I know I'm of a level that a lot of people are not. And so they're always constantly looking for materials, they're looking for inspiration. Much as I look at other people's work and I get inspired, we're all kind of doing the same thing for each other. And so that's our job. And so I say, chin up, look at how cool this is going to be when it's done, and look at how many new people you're going to inspire. And that's a gift you're giving to them. Think about what you're inspired by, other things. These are all gifts that we're giving to each other. So
fantastic. Take me back to when you were, when did you first know that creating was something that you wanted to do, that you were good at?
When I started drawing when I was about 4 years old.
Wow.
And
okay.
I've always had this fascination with fantasy and science fiction and all that kind of stuff. So I remember watching a Monkey King cartoon. I was born in Taiwan, and so just loving things that were fantastic. That I was drawn to that. So I started drawing when I was 4 years old. I still remember some of my first drawings, if you can believe it or not, that I was doing. And then watching a lot of cartoons, and I eventually got into a lot of Japanese superhero like Ultraman and Kamen Rider, and growing up in that kind of environment. And then eventually, when I moved to the United States, I saw what was a Halloween mask made of latex, and it blew my mind because I always had a fascination with masks as a kid. But in Taiwan, the masks we have were just like cardboard cutouts with the eyes and stuff. You just print it.
Okay.
You use rubber bands and you put it around your ears.
Yeah.
So that's to the extent of masks that we had. And so when I came to the United States, when I immigrated here, I saw these full head latex masks that were painted with hair glued on. It blew my mind.
Yeah.
And I started collecting them. So I collected it for about 4 years. And during that 4 years, I started reading up on monster magazines like Famous Monster, Cinemagic, and started seeing that, in order to make these masks, you have to do sculpture and you have to make molds. And little by little, I thought, what, I can't just collect anymore. Like, I love collecting the masks, but I really want to know how to make them. So I went into the art store, bought some cheap clay and forks and spoons and knives, and just started sculpting. Taught myself how to sculpt over the years and make molds, and screwed up a lot and messed up a lot of hardworking, sculptures and stuff. But eventually, that's how you learn. I think that's the best way to learn, because when you screw up really badly, you learn not to do that again. And about 5 years into that, I built up a portfolio, and I ended up moving to LA to find work.
How old were you when you moved to LA?
I was 19 years old.
Okay.
When I moved to LA, yeah. And I was very lucky. Got my first break at Stan Winston Studios on Just from Mars, and I got hired a week into moving into town. And I was lucky because some of my friends and roommates were already working there, so it was kind of an easy in. And I got in there, and I've just been working since. The first year I learned a lot of the technical stuff, that you just will never learn in your garage, because the kind of materials you use is so expensive and toxic, and did that. And I'm very lucky. After that, my second job, I was hired by Rick Baker as a sculptor, which blew my mind. Rick Baker was like my idol as a kid. All the greats like Rick Baker, Stan Winston, Dick Smith, Tom Berman. I mean, these guys were the gods of our industry. So I was a huge fan of all of them. So, having worked with Stan and then go right into Rick's and being hired as a sculptor by the guy the man,
Crazy. That would have been, how did you, how did that feel?
You mean before or after I crapped my pants?
You're like the first day. Oh.
It was surreal. It was like I literally lived only about a mile and a half from Rick's studio, and that was the longest drive into work that morning.
Yeah,
because it seems like I was going in slow motion, and my heart was pounding like, oh my God, I am going to be working for Rick Baker.
How did this even happen? Yeah.
And I'm just a kid. I just got out of high school a year before, and like I don't know anything. All I have is my sculptures and some masks, and but apparently Rick thought I was good enough, and I went there and I sculpted, and I've worked for Rick throughout the years.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was really, really nice.
And what was it like when you actually met him for the first time? Was it kind of like, did you keep your cool?
Yeah, totally. Actually, because I interviewed with him before that, and it had two funny thoughts. The first thought was, when I first saw him, I've always known Rick Baker as, he had that beard, right, the goatee. That was the cool makeup guy look.
Yeah.
And I always wanted to grow a goatee, and here I am in my 50s. I finally grow one. But he had shaved his beard off. So the whole time I was talking to him, I was like, oh my God, it's Rick Baker, but is he an imposter? Like, I don't recognize him, I mean, I know it's Rick, but it doesn't look the same. And yeah, it was weird. And then the second thing was, he was gracious enough after the interview to walk me through his shop and show me all these things. And I was able to see all the iconic characters that I grew up really admiring, and seeing in person was just amazing. And so at that point, I was just like, he hired me on the spot. He said, oh, yeah, start next week, because we were all working on Invaders from Mars coming off, and he hired my roommate Matt Rose as well to be a sculptor. And Matt is an amazing sculptor. I learned a lot from him when we were amateurs working up in the Bay Area. So and then the funny thing was, when we got back to Invaders from Mars on set, a lot of people I interviewed from our crew there, and it turned out only Matt and I got the tour. So
nice.
And that was really cool. Yeah, I was really happy about that. So not that they didn't get a tour, but that we got a tour.
Yeah. So you done drawing. You moved to clay.
Mm-hmm.
Had you been experimenting in other mediums?
No, but pretty much I just wanted to, my whole thing was I just wanted to be a mask maker.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to make masks. I wasn't even that interested in making effects, other than that it was really cool. And, and you do a lot of things with rubber, and you make these change-o heads and all that stuff. I was really fascinated by it, but I wouldn't say I was really passionate about it. I wanted to make masks. I wanted to make monster suits. That was all I wanted to do. And then, as it turns out, once you get into industry, there's a bit of that. A year, I had done one monster suit at 19 on my own, which was absolutely horrible. It's on my Instagram. It's this orange-looking reptilian thing.
Nice.
And then a year later, I got hired by Stan to do the Monster Squad Gilman with my roommate Matt Rose. Mm-hmm. And somehow, I haven't been in the industry for just 1 year and still a teenager. And being around all these amazing artists and just adapting a mentality of, we're innovators, not imitators. Like, we have to invent, we have to create. That's what the industry is. After you've adapted that mentality, we came up with a new way of doing monster suits that was so revolutionary. It became the industry standard, even to this day.
Nice.
And
that's gotta feel good.
It's nice. I mean, I don't think about it so much because, everybody, for everything that I've come up with, there are dozens of other guys out there who've created amazing new things that everybody's using. It's all part of your way of contributing into, an industry that you're passionate about. But the cool thing about that was that, I didn't realize until I posted these photos on Instagram, like, oh, I did this at this time and I did this. And I thought, oh my God, in 1 year's time from this crappy suit, I did this suit that sort of became this industry standard that today is still very highly revered by people. And so I thought, wow, that's really, really lucky. But then I became like the suit guy. Like, I did so many suits over the years, and I developed all these new methods and techniques and all these things that that I use to make suits fit better, look better, move better, all that kind of stuff, because I was so passionate about it.
So what was the time between that and the Predator?
Oh, the time between the Monster Squad and Predator was right after Monster Squad.
Okay.
Yeah, so as soon as I finished Monster Squad, I was right into Predator, and then did that suit, and then I was 20 years old at the time when I did Predator. Yeah.
That's young. That's really young.
Yeah, I did. You don't realize it when you're actually in it, but
Yeah.
the industry back then was comprised of a lot of young people,
Yeah.
because it was so new too. And
Of course. Yeah.
and it wasn't like you go to makeup school and you come out. It's like, what makeup school? The
Yeah,
one
it's
thing that
just
was
all taught on the job.
yeah, what was amazing is I got into the studio, and then I met all the other guys there, young guys that were now been my friends now for decades. And there was this amazing camaraderie because that all these other kids were all over, spread across the United States, love monsters, figure out a way to teach themselves how to do it, made that long journey from wherever they're from into LA, took a chance to find work and made it in. They were good enough to make it in.
Yeah.
And so there was this unspoken respect, like, wow, look at all these guys, and there's always talks about, hey, did you hear about that guy in New York or that guy in Wisconsin? He's up and coming. This guy's amazing, and you know about certain people before they even got in the industry, because there's kind of little radars out there, people who had know people. And that was always kind of really cool. So yeah, until now, the industry kind of took a dive after CG came in, and it was dead for quite a while. Now it's really thriving again. But mostly in the makeup arena. All these horror shows and Game of Thrones, like there's a lot of makeups being done. Makeups are amazing. The technology has gotten so advanced now that sometimes some of these makeups are like the old age makeups, character makeups are almost imperceptible to real humans.
Yeah, it's fantastic what they're doing. It's when you look back, it's come so far in such a short space of time, though, right? You look at like I was watching. My dad loves Flash Gordon and the old Buster Crabbe stuff, and I was looking at some of the and I was looking at some of the the stuff they were doing, and I was like, geez, that wasn't that long ago, and now it's just. Yeah, he can't believe it when he looks at things. He's like, "Is that real or is that?" It's like, I don't know. So were your parents? How most parents are like, "Art, go and be a doctor," or what were your parents?
I got it way worse than that.
Oh, really?
Because you're coming from a Chinese family, they don't believe in that kind of stuff. Mostly, they're born and bred to believe that you either have to be a doctor, a lawyer, or an engineer, or own a restaurant to be successful.
Oh, okay.
And I came from a restaurant business. My mom and my dad both have their own restaurants, and so I've worked at both of them. So when I told them that I was not going to go to college, I was going to go straight into the business, they freaked out. They were just like, "What? Can you actually make money doing this stuff?" My dad was just like, oh, "Okay, whatever." He wasn't like, he didn't understand what I was talking about. My mom was very supportive in a weird way. She knew that she was going to talk me out of it because she didn't know what it was. She thought I was just messing around all these years in my bedroom making these monsters. She didn't know that was an actual industry. And so she asked me, "Oh, can I put you through makeup school or something?" And I'm just like, there is no makeup school. This is all new. Yeah, this is all new stuff. Makeup effects is being developed as we speak.
We're making this shit up as we go along.
Yeah, I was like, I can make masks. Let me go take a shot.
We hope you enjoyed part 1 of Steve's podcast interview, and look out for part 2 next Tuesday. Please leave us a review on iTunes, comment on our YouTube channel if you're watching this in video format, and let us know how you're finding these episodes. Also, if you or anyone else you know would like to be featured on A Sculpted Life and they've got a story to tell, then send them our way by emailing us at sculpting@paltiya.com. That's PALTIYA.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.
If you want to know more about Tiya and our amazing product, Tiya Premium, then visit www.paltiya.com and join our international fan base.